Good morning. Sorry I wasn't able to be here today, but what I have for you is I'm going to do a quick video lesson on segment addition. Okay, so some quick things to realize when I look at this line, A, B, when I think about notation, this A, B with a line on top means a line segment with endpoints A and B. However, when I forget to put the line on top, or I purposefully don't put it there, that means I'm talking about the distance. So I'm telling you how long, okay, the length of this line, or the distance between A and B. So for example, AB might look like 14 centimeters. So what the word between means is it's in somewhere in the middle, not necessarily in the exact middle, but that it is existing between those 2 points. So when I look at this picture, it says E is between C and D. So I draw a C and a D, and I put E just somewhere between those two. And then G, it says G is not between. So you can put G anywhere out here. And then for 1 point, it must be between 2 other points. That means those 3 points must be collinear. So when I look at this, if Q is between P and R, so when I draw my line segment, I'm thinking about, okay, what are the endpoints? If Q is between P and R, that means P and R are the outside, and Q is just somewhere here in the middle, okay? Not in the exact middle necessarily. But when this happens, when I talk about segment addition, I can now say part plus a part equals the whole. What this means is I can say, well, this part of the line segment P to Q, notice I don't put a line on top because I'm talking about the length of it, plus the other part, Q to R, will equal the entire line segment P to Q. P to R. Okay, so I can say part plus a part equals the whole. So let's look at our first example. Example 1, N is between L and P. So if I draw a line segment and I think N is between, that means N is going to be somewhere here between L and P. So now I'm going to think, well, based on segment addition, I can say part plus a part equals a whole. Well, what are my parts here? So I know that Ln is one of these parts. L to N is part 1. And then I also know that the second part is N to P. Well, then that means these must equal the entire line segment L to P. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my information. I'm just going to plug it in. So L to N is 14. So instead of writing Ln, I'm going to put 14. And instead of writing NP, notice they tell me PN. So all they've done is switch the order. Not a big deal. They're telling me N to P is now 12. And they're saying find L to P. So L to P is going to be our X. We don't know what it is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add those. Well, what's 14 plus 12? You got it. 26. Now, I don't know if this is inches, centimeters, or what, but I do know that 14 plus 12 is 26. So try the next one. Pause your video. Make sure you can try the next one all on your own. So hopefully you have the same thing that I do here. You're going to notice that Q is between R and T, so Q is existing somewhere between these two. So now what I've done is I've said part plus a part equals the whole. So R to Q is part 1. Q to T is part 2. And then when I add those two together, I'm going to get the entire R to T line. Well, notice now that they're telling me R to T is 18. So this and R to T is 18, and then Q to R is 10. So they want me to find Q to T. So I made Q to T my X. Well, this thing gave me 10 plus X equals 18. All I had to do is subtract 10 from both sides, X equals 8. So again, continue to work ahead. See if you can work on this all on your own. And pause the video and check your answer in a minute. So hopefully you have the same thing I do here. So all that's changing between these two is that I now have a variable. So it says given AC is 39 and B is between A and C. So again, I drew my picture. B is existing somewhere between that line segment A and C. So it says find B to C if AB is 2x minus 8 and BC is x plus 17. So same kind of problem, part plus part equals a whole. So that first part, A to B, is 2x minus 8. So instead of writing A to B, I just put 2x minus 8. And B to C, instead of writing B to C, I just put x plus 17. And so put x plus 17 here. And then A to C is 39, so this is going to equal 39. So then I combine my terms. I start on this row. Well, what is negative 8 plus a 17? Positive 9. And what's 2 plus 1? 3x. So then all I have to do is subtract 9 from both sides. Those cancel. This gives me 3x equals 30. Divide by 3. And I get x equals 10. So flip it over and try your very last problem. Pause your video. And try that last one. So hopefully on this problem, you're finding the same thing. So again, I'm looking at part plus a part equals a whole. So if n is between m and p, m to n is a part, n to p is a part, and then the whole is going to be m to p. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say part plus part equals the whole thing. I'm going to then write my sentence name. So mn plus np equals np. And then I'm just going to fill it in. Well, how long is m to n? Well, it tells me m to n is 3x plus 2, and it tells me n to p is 18, and that m to p is 5x. So all I'm going to do is plug those in the corresponding locations. I then use my algebra skills and solve. However, on this problem, it's actually asking me to find m to n. It's not asking me to stop at x. So what I need to do is take that x and plug it back in. So when I think about m to n, I know this is 3x plus 2. Well, now I actually know that this x is 10. So m to n then becomes 3 times 10 plus 2, which means the length of m to n is 32. So what I did was I did the same thing, and all I did was I took that x and I plugged it back in based on what they asked for. Find m to n. You'll get more practice on this, so don't worry. These last two problems are a little bit different. So I'm actually looking at the midpoint. So midpoint is creates two segments that are equal or congruent. So again, remember we talked about the other day, we talked about these little tick marks and how they make congruent. So what this means is when I have two congruent segments that are exactly the same or they're equal, I can do something a little bit different. I can say, because B is in the exact middle, I can find how long A to B is. However, I'm not going to use part plus a part equals a whole because this is a different kind of problem. They don't tell me how long A to C is. I have no idea how long this is. So instead of doing that, because this line segment is the same as this line segment, I can say 3x plus 4 is exactly the same thing as 5x minus 6 because it's the midpoint. So then all I have to do is use algebra and solve. Subtract 4. This gives me 3x is equal to 5x minus 10. Subtract 5x from both sides. This gives me a negative 2x is equal to negative 10. Divide by negative 2, and I get x equals 5.